Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about the tournament that just concluded, the Mombasa Chess Festival. The tournament happened in Mombasa at a city mall rooftop, and it had some exciting players playing like Gohil, Mehul, and Gabriel Njuki. Also, some players from Norway like what was his name? Jens Vin Tyrim, I think was his name. And it's been an amazing tournament. Everything was amazing at the tournament. I also played in it. Well, well directed, or might I say, like the tournament was well done. Let me just say that. And everything went as planned. Everything was okay. The venue was amazing. We had a couple of interviews with some of the winners of the tournament and some of the podium finishers, and it was an amazing tournament all in. And the person who ended up winning was Gohil, and he won with 5.5 out of 6. So in the next few videos, I'm going to be showing Gohil's road to victory, and I'm going to show how he won. Okay, I didn't really initially I didn't really want to show all the games that he played, but then because some games are not really that great of a quality, but then I just thought it would make sense to show everything, because then we want to show everyone how to convert positions when you're playing against weaker opponents. So this was game one, because even after the announcements we have to show a game. So this was game one, and Gohil was playing Elias Cheruiyot, and Gohil started with pawn to d4, pawn to d5, pawn to c4 by Gohil, knight to f6, knight to c3, and now pawn to e6. And Gohil chose to go with the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit declined. And now after e takes d, Gohil played bishop to g5, just continuing with a normal ideas in the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit. Bishop to e7 played by Elias Cheruiyot, still going with the theory, nothing too new, nothing crazy here. And now queen to c2, just avoiding any early bishop to f5 ideas, because sometimes when you play something here like maybe pawn to e3, preparing to develop the bishop to d3, black can very easily play bishop to f5, and this leads to a bunch of other new lines, like maybe bishop to d3 can even be played right now. Anything, even bishop to f6, so many things can be played. Knight g to e2, introducing this idea of playing knight to g3. So many things are playable from this position, but to avoid all this, to avoid giving black the free developing move with bishop to f5, or rather the bishop to f5 square, or the f5 square for f5 square, oh Jesus Christ, for the bishop, we want to play queen to c2. We want to control the f5 square to avoid any quick developing ideas from black. So here queen to c2 was played by Gohil, knight to c6 was played by Elias Cheruiyot, and I'm going to put or maybe a clip of the analysis that we had with Elias Cheruiyot and Gohil immediately after this round. And noticeably, you're going to hear me on the video saying that knight to c6 is probably a positional mistake, because again, it's very rare to see something like knight to c6 in Queen's Gambit declined games, if I may say that. Normally we want to play something like pawn to c6, knight b to d7, we want to castle, we want to bring our rook to probably the e file, then put our knight on f8. And in this way, the knight on f8 is going to defend the pawn on h7 against any ideas when when white lands his bishop on d3 and creates this battery against the h7 square. So instead of making us concede the formation or the pawn formation on the king side as black, by playing h6 to chase this bishop away and to kind of blunt the power of this battery, we want to play that maneuvering idea with knight b to d7, knight to f8. We want to control this h7 square with the knight on f8 and allow our other knight to move, probably to e4, if the idea is to play to e4. Some other times we can play knight to g4, also playable. But after playing knight to c6 here, I didn't think this was a bright idea, because I also saw Victor Ngani play this. I think I've analyzed a game where Victor Ngani played knight to c6, and I think it was against Victor Kionga, if I'm not too sure, if I'm not too wrong, I mean. But knight to c6, to me, I'm not a very big fan of seeing such ideas. Again, it could be prepared. Okay, you could play maybe something like bishop to d6, bring the other knight in, maybe try and control the f5 square somehow, or even develop it all the way back to g3 using this method. But then I don't really see why knight to c6 is an important move. Blunts or maybe stagnates the development of your bishop, or of your pawn on c7, makes it a very weak pawn. Can attack it later with moves maybe like bishop to f4, maybe throw your knight into to b5. I am not the biggest fan of this move. So immediately after knight to c6, go ahead play d3, continuing with the position, and you're going to see how this move knight to c6 is going to kind of blunt or maybe kind of congest black's position, because black is not going to really have a lot of squares to maneuver with the knight being on c6. So you're going to see how it's going to stop a lot of play from black. Maybe here he could have played knight to b4, then pushed c5. Probably that could have been okay. But then I don't really see why knight to c6 was played in this position. So pawn to e3 by Gohil. Pawn to a6 by Elias Cheruiyot. And here I'm beginning to think Elias was beginning to get out of preparation, or maybe out of theory, because then I couldn't, when analyzing, I couldn't find the plan that he was trying to follow here. So pawn to a3 by Gohil, stopping any knight jumping ideas into b4. Bishop to e6, developing move. Yeah, I think it's okay. Bishop to d3, continuing with the opening plans of a typical Queen's Gambit declined opening. And now this battery is now staring all the way at the h7 pawn. It's going to be really annoying to defend this pawn, because then you have to play moves like h6. Then yeah, okay, it's playable. It's a playable move, but then I don't like when we sort of concede the pawn formation without a clear idea or something like that. I'm not too sure. Okay, h6 is okay, pushing the bishop away, but then I don't like pushing pawns without good reason. So bishop to d3 was played, pawn to h6, now bishop to h4, and now queen to d7. Here Elias, I think, was just trying to hint at Gohil that is, he could castle any side. If you're castling queen side here, then it really makes sense playing your knight on c6, because then you don't have any weak diagonals on this very long diagonal, where this bishop could maybe exploit from g3. But then let's see what happens. So queen to d7, knight g to e2, and kingside castles. And again, I'm feeling like Elias was mixing up ideas and mixing up strategies probably. Let's see how it went. So Gohil played castles, knight to g4. Finally, some initiative by Elias, trying to exchange pieces and maybe trying to decongest his position. But then Gohil just declined and played bishop to g3, because then as white in this position, you don't really want to trade pieces, because then you'll be freeing up black. Because if you look at black's position, all these pieces don't really control that much of squares. I think maybe the square on f5 is controlled, but then that's not really what white is fighting for right now. The bishop on e7 is looking very ugly, controlling pointless diagonals on the board, because then this diagonal does nothing, and this other diagonal is blunted by the pawn on a3 rather. And the queen on d7 doesn't really do much. The knight on c6 is stuck, can't really move. If you had maybe an e pawn, you could maybe prepare something like bishop to d6, and that e pawn push, trying to strike at the center, and then this knight on c6 will have been a very good piece. So I'm clearly not the biggest advocate for playing this knight to c6 moves. I really don't like it. I see them sometimes, and I don't really enjoy like having your knight on c6 with this pawn on c7. That's what I mean. I don't want your pawn to be behind your knight. So Yeah, but I guess it's a matter of style. So bishop to g3 here by Gohil, bishop to d6, and knight to a4. Bishop takes on h3, and here you can take with either piece. You can take with the knight, you can take with the pawn, and in my opinion, I could have taken with the pawn. Maybe play h takes like this, try and jump in with your knight, try and control some very crucial squares, maybe control e6, threatening to capture, and they can never really play something like g4 to kick your knight away, because then you jump into h5 and your knight is very, very safe there and has a lot of threats on f6 and such squares. So I would have played h takes, but Gohil played knight takes on g3, pawn to or rather queen to e7, and now pawn to h3, kicking the knight away. Knight went back to c6, and now knight went back to f6, and now rook a to c1, knight back to d7, and Gohil played rook to e1. And the feeling you're getting from black is starting to get really uncomfortable in this position. Doesn't really know what to do, doesn't have any insane pawn breaks. If it were me in this position, maybe, okay, after rook a c1, this knight again cannot move, because then the pawn on c7 becomes really, really weak. But I'm guessing at some point the idea could have been maybe trying to prepare this c7 c5 push somehow. Maybe remaneuver your knight to another square, probably maybe go back, or maybe go to a7, then try and push. Again, it's not pretty, but then you really want to create something. You want to create some pawn push or some pawn breaks ideas, and you want to have some sort of control in the game. So it's becoming really, really uncomfortable, and you can see like Elias is trying to maneuver and find some pawn breaks of his own, maybe try and find places to place, or maybe better squares for his pieces as he tries to maneuver. So here Gohil played rook f to e1, just controlling the e3 pawn and defending it in any ideas of maybe pushing f4 or something like that. You really want your weakest pawn on the board to be defended accurately. So here rook f to c1 was rook f to c8 was played, and I think now Elias is trying to get the idea that he needs to get this knight out of the way and push something like pawn to c5, but then it's becoming really, really late, because here Gohil just plays pawn to f4, and you can see the idea clearly. He wants to push f4, f5, the bishop is trapped on e6, doesn't really know where to go. Here maybe ideas, again, you could play something like maybe queen to h4, try and put pressure on this knight. Queen to f2, maybe by white, queen to f2, also preparing this f5 push still, maybe pawn to f6, and try and find yourself some little pockets to hide your bishop. But here Elias ended up, after rook f to c8, after pawn to f4, Elias ended up playing pawn to b5, pawn to b5 rather, and this was the losing move in the position. So here Gohil just played queen takes on c6, b takes f4 was played, and now pawn to f4, losing the bishop after knight to b6, pawn takes, and now after pawn takes back, f takes back on e6, king to h2 was played, and Elias resigned the game. So you can see how clear or how easy it was for Elias to get mixed up in the strategies, and Gohil immediately pounced on the mistakes, and he converted, or rather he took advantage of the mistakes and really, really did something nice for himself. So here Gohil is on 1 out of 1, first game, first win, and he's looking really great. He's looking on form at the time. Looking at him in the tournament, he looks really, really in shape, and he was looking like he really wanted to win the tournament. So we're going to look at other games. I'm going to be posting the other games too shortly after this, but you can see what I meant. It wasn't really a high quality game. I wouldn't say it was really, really that high quality, but then Gohil did what he needed to do, and he won the game, and that's what matters. So thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned. I'm going to post all the other games of that Gohil played, and hope you enjoy the rest of your week.